What is the difference really between these two hybrid cameras, the brand new Sony A6700 and the workhorse of a camera Sony A7IV? And which one of these two is the perfect camera for you and why? Well, by the end of this video, you'll know exactly that and a whole lot more. Alright, so the first obvious difference is the size and the sensor. The A6700 is smaller and more compact. It's also equipped with a 26 megapixel back-illuminated Exmor-R sensor. And on the other hand, the Sony A7IV, it's much bigger, more bulkier, and it's equipped with a 33 megapixel full frame sensor. And when you don't have any lens on, you can actually see the difference in the sensor size. And don't worry if it's open, I'm a professional. Now this obviously makes the feeling of the cameras quite different, ranging from the grip to the viewfinder. I mean, everything is just much bigger on the A7IV. Now, bigger isn't always better, or at least I really much hope so. The A6700 is packed with some brand new impressive features that the A7IV just simply does not have. First and foremost, the A6700 is equipped with this brand new powered by AI autofocus that is really fast and accurate. It's the same autofocus that you can find on the Sony A7R5, which is a sick camera. And after I've been playing around with this autofocus for quite some time, since on the ZV-E1, which this camera is shot on, then I'm floored. It's really good. However, the autofocus on the A7IV is also good. This is just the latest and greatest, and it is better. It can also film 4K 120 frames per second, which this one just simply cannot do. The maximum amount of frame rate that you can film on the A7IV is 60 frames per second, but then it's also cropped, so you aren't utilizing the entire sensor. On the other hand though, the 120 frames per second on the A7IV, it's also quite cropped, but it is a lot higher 4K frame rate than you will get on this camera. With the A6700, you can load your own LUTs. You also get the brand new auto framing mode that you can find on the Sony ZV-E1. That's a feature that I think is pretty interesting, and there are probably some other things as well. However, that does not mean that the A6700 smashes the living out of the A7IV. The A7IV has some neat things under the hood too that this one doesn't have. For example, it has a wider ISO range, and the A7IV also provides additional options when it comes to the raw file settings. It also boasts a higher maximum shutter speed, which can be achieved actually on the A6700, but only when you're using the electronical shutter. A big thing too this camera has that the A6700 does not have is 2 memory card slots. And also you can use one of these CF Express cards that are really fast on this camera that you can't on the smaller camera. Then because of the bigger body, the viewfinder is bigger, and the grip, it's also bigger, which some people might find more comfortable. On top of all that, it also has better low-light performance, and as you said before, they're totally different image sensors. Now, there are probably some other things that makes these cameras different from each other, but these are the things that piqued my interest the most. But in my opinion, both of these cameras are great, and they do have some pretty cool things in common that we'll dive in a second. But first, let's throw up a few photos side by side from these cameras, and let's see if you're actually able to spot which of these photos comes from which camera. I mean, can you see the difference yourself? Let me know. Alright, so without lying, were you able to see any difference when you were comparing them side by side? Well, if you said that the right side was the A6700, then you were totally right, and you get an awesome price of being right. That's not a bad price, That's a good price. And you do get an extra price of smacking the like button of this video. That's also a huge price. And you get thank you from me. Thank you. However, that was photography. What about when we compare the videos from these two cameras side by side? Is that harder or more easy to spot the difference? Well, let's see. Did you spot the difference? Do you have what it takes? the key now. I don't know where I'm going with this. But by the end of this video, I'll tell you which side was shot at the A7IV and A6700. So keep that in mind and remember, because you might win another prize. As I said earlier, both these cameras have some cool things in common. For instance, they can both film 10-bit 4:2 footage with up to 600 megabytes per second when using the all-intra compression. Then they also both have advanced picture profiles such as S-Log3 or like S-Cinetone. They have webcam mode that are easy to use, breathing compensation for video, plus they both have variable shutter, which is pretty neat. They're also both equipped with a 5-axis image stabilization. However, the A7IV, it's slightly better with like 5.5 stops of stabilization, while the A6700 has 5.0 stops of stabilization. Then they both also have this active mode image stabilization for video, which utilizes electronic stabilization with a 1.1x crop. And they do also both have this big battery right here, which I think is great. There's a lot of power in this little bad boy. However, when it comes to the price, there's definitely a difference. At the time of the recording, the A7IV cost around $2,500 for just the body, and the A6700, it costs around $1,400 or $1,400 for just the body. Now that we've gone over all of that, then which one of these cameras is the perfect camera for you and why? And by the way, if you said before that the right side of the videos, when we were comparing, if you said the right side with a rolling R, is my fourth video filming today. I'm getting a little bit tired in the head. But if you said that the right side was the A7IV, then you win the prize. A prize! Woohoo! You win the prize. Now just have to figure out what the prize is.
Alright, so this video was actually recorded a few months ago. I just haven't had the time to edit it until now. But that means that also I've had more time to play around with both of these cameras. And there are a few things that I want to add. Firstly, the A7IV, it has a slightly better dynamic range. It is also less noisy. This example right here, it's quite extreme. You won't really be underexposing the image this much, but you can clearly see the difference in noise. Another thing I also think is interesting to keep in mind is that the A7IV is actually 7K footage that is then downsampled to 4K, while the A6700 is 6K footage that is then downsampled to 4K. That means that there's like a slightly sharper image with the A7IV. Also, full frame will give you more depth of field, like bokeh, compared to an APS-C. Now, another thing, if you're into burst shooting and shooting like at high frame rates photography, then the A6700, I think if I'm not mistaken, it has 11 frames per second you can shoot, while this one has 10 frames per second. And then lastly, because this is Sony, both of these cameras, both the full frame and the APS-C, are equipped with E-mount, like Sony E-mount. So you can use all of the lenses, whether it's a full frame lens or an APS-C lens, on both this camera. And that is something that I really much like about Sony. But keep in mind though, if you use APS-C lenses on the full frame, you will have to switch into, you know, the Super 35 crop mode, the APS-C mode, you know?
Now, when you look at the A6700 and the A7IV, it all depends on what you care about the most. Having a bigger full frame camera or maybe sticking to the budget. The A7IV gives you really nice picture quality, but it does cost you more. On the other hand, the A6700 might be a better deal, at least when it comes to, you know, money-wise, and this has a smaller APS-C sensor. If you're into video making, both cameras are pretty similar, especially if you want 4K 60 frames per second, but the A6700 is a bit better here because it can film 4K 120 frames per second, although it is, you know, quite cropped when it does it. But some people maybe feel that the smaller size might make it harder to record videos for a long time. I, on the other hand, like that it's small and compact simply because it takes up less space when I'm out in the wild. So, do you value small and compact over big and bulky? Also, the A6700 is newer and it is equipped with some cool new features for both photography and videography. Some of them, like, really good. Some of them might be a little bit more towards the gimmick side. You can be the judge of that. These are all some really important questions that you will quite frankly have to answer on your own. But then again, how good is the 120 frames per second 4K footage actually that the A6700 can film? Watch this video next and find out.